The Ghost Flame is a dangerous magic, not for the meddling of Tarnished, unlike that meddling necromancer, Garrus.
Hey everyone, I'm Bite-Sized Otaku, and this is the Ghost Flame Watcher, a spellcaster that uses the Ghost Flame equipment to its advantage. There's quite a bit to cover, so I'll keep the talking to a minimum so we can get straight to the action and you can see the combinations. But, like the video and give it to me bite-sized. So for the equipment, I've chosen our gear based mostly on style, but also on stats like defense, so we have some survivability. We have the Mask of Confidence, the Confessor armor, the Eccentrix manchettes, and the Blades Greaves? Blythe. The Mask of Confidence will boost our arcane by 3 points, which isn't useful for our build, but I couldn't resist the absolute drip. This gives us a good spread of defense leading towards fire and magic, but we only have 42 poise, which means we will need to avoid getting caught by aggressive players who will stagger us out of our attacks. And this will be accomplished by using the Death's Poker, which comes with the weapon art Ghost Flame Ignition. This is a super fun weapon because alongside staggering enemies for frost build up, we can benefit from both an explosion for close range and a trail of fire for long range, which will be useful for putting some distance between us and our enemies. We also have the Prince of Death Staff, which provides a bonus to the damage of death sorceries by 10%. I did try equipping it with Spinning Weapon, but it didn't do anything, so I just ignore it. Then for our talismans, we have the Shard of Alexander for a 15% weapon art boost, which will be super important as we will be spamming our weapon art during tough encounters. We have the Millicent's Prophesis, which will boost our dexterity by +5 and the damage of our successive attacks. We then have the Graven Skull Talisman for a 4% boost to our sorceries, and the Graven Mass Talisman for an 8% boost to our sorceries, with both talismans stacking. Then for our spells, we have Rancor Call, Ancient Death Rancor, and Explosive Ghost Flame, which all have their uses, and we'll explore this in our strategy section. I've also included Tibia Summons, which is an interesting spell to say the least. For our stats, I've gone with 60 Vigor and 26 Endurance, so we have a bit to carry our equipment, and we can roll when required. Then we have 15 Strength, 17 Dexterity, and 30 Faith for the requirements of our equipment. The 22 Mind is so we can get a few casts in without having to recharge, and I've gone for 42 in Intelligence for our weapon scaling and overall damage. This is based on a level 136 Astrologer, with all equipment upgraded 1 level below the maximum, which will avoid you having to use a rare Ancient Dragon Smithing Stone. So moving on to the meat of the video, let's discuss our strategies. Our tactic will revolve around ranged attacks and close range explosions, so we can alternate to deceive our opponent into some damage. I like to start by casting both Ancient Death Rancor with a little bit of Rancor Core sprinkled in, both of which will home in on the target. While Ancient Death Rancor is great for causing stagger damage, Rancor Core can be charged for more damage and has slightly different tracking. Then usually the opponent will try to play aggressively by charging towards you while the skulls follow, which is a great chance to use Ghost Flame Ignition with the explosion option to ambush your opponent. Alternatively, you have the Explosive Ghost Flame, which has a longer wind up and lacks the initial thrust which can stagger, but has a larger explosion radius. The Flame Trail version of the Ghost Flame Ignition can damage enemies continuously, alongside creating a short wall of fire between yourself and your opponent to create some distance. And both of these weapon arts can have their direction change mid-animation, allowing you to detonate near the opponent or to send your flaming trail in a different direction. Then we have the Tibia Summons, which summons 3 ghosts with swords to strike at an enemy's position. This is a hit or miss because it doesn't track a moving target, meaning the enemy will need to be stationary, resulting in the attack often missing. But the benefit is that the spirits are summoned, meaning your opponent won't see the attack coming until it's too late, providing they are in the middle of an animation, which means they can't move. Turning to the PvE applications, this build will do fantastic damage against bosses and enemies alike. The Death Poker's Ghost Flame Ignition Fire Trail can melt bosses quickly due to its reoccurring damage and frost buildup, combined with the fact that most enemies aren't smart enough to move out of the fire. And if we turn to our weapon's physical damage, it's not the best, but it's good enough to smack an opponent away when they get too close, and in some cases can finish an enemy if you run out of FP. On our weaknesses is tricky to say, as we can pretty much counter everything, but you may find that quick step daggers and other opponents who try to apply pressure on us may prove too aggressive to handle. as our build depends on being able to perform a cast and overwhelm the enemy. But to summarise, we have a build that makes use of both ranged Ghost Flame spells and close ranged attacks to counter both ranged and melee fighters alike, by applying pressure and following up with an explosion to deal massive damage. But let me know your thoughts on the build, and of course subscribe. This is Bite Sized Otaku, and I hope you enjoyed.